We got another one of them. Popping at the mouth or the side of his neck when he pouts. No argument, no rebuttal from. He ain't from my town, I don't know him, so I'm guessing he's a clown.
Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. So, Drew McIntyre and Lashley, it's official. They now will fight in Hell in a Cell, and if Drew does not win, he will not challenge Lashley again for the WWE Championship. And I really don't want to go through the segment. I mean, I really don't want to. The only cool thing that happened is Drew McIntyre cut the table with a sword. I thought that was cool. But other than that, the segment went on. Of course, it went on too long. He's told this story about Robert the Bruce living in a cave, looking up at the spider, and the spider fell again and again and again. And he kept saying, "Spider, what are you doing, man? Why don't you just give up? Just stop doing it. It's not going to work, man." And then he realized as he lay in that spider, he looked up at the spider and he said, "Spider, you have inspired me, Spider. I am going to go and free Scotland." It's like, man, what the fuck is he talking about? You know, like, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's a fable, but we really didn't need that. We didn't really need any of this, if we're being honest. But, you know, I like that Drew was kind of, you know, like, let's get on with this. And, you know, Lashley's back there predisposed with his ladies. They're kind of treating Lashley a little bit like Mike Tyson a little bit. And that's really what I wanted to get to. Is Lashley has been, you know, top of the mountain for a little while now, probably about 3 or 4 months. And he's getting a little complacent. Getting a little complacent where he's in this position now where he's, you know, beating everybody. He did manage to lose to Kofi that once. But for the most part, he pretty much dominated and destroyed everybody. And now he's so far above that he's kind of chilling. You know, so they've been writing this story for the last couple of weeks. I think that's the symbolism of him hanging out with these women, right? Like Lashley's eyes off the ball. You know, now he's partying with the ladies, and Drew has rededicated himself to being champion. And Lashley's like, I've been champion a little while now. After WrestleMania, it was kind of like, okay, you know, party time. You know, we don't need to take this too seriously anymore. So now I'm about to go hang out with these chicks. So the last couple of weeks, he's just been hanging out with the ladies, drinking champagne, hanging out with MVP. And if you know, like, the story of Mike Tyson, that was really his downfall, is that he didn't take Buster Douglas seriously. So he was, like, up all night partying and dancing and, you know, chilling and everything. And then he went to fight Buster Douglas in Japan and got knocked the fuck out. So I'm guessing that's what they're going to try to do here. Is they're about to try to tell this story of Lashley being completely and totally distracted with MVP and all the ladies and everything and the champagne and the money and all this kind of stuff. And he got soft. You know, like, I'm really loving what they're doing with Lashley. Like, I like the aesthetic. He's walking around. He's very comfortable in the suit. He's still got some menace to him. So that the angle is still there that he's serious. But he's obviously not as uptight as he used to be. You know, he's clearly not as uptight as he was before. He's not as focused on, you know, his space anymore. He's not as territorial as he used to be. He was, you know, at one point, you know, Lashley was like, no days off. You know, we fight every Monday, no days off. We fighting somebody. And then it just became kind of, you know, I don't got time for that. You know, I got other things to do. You know, like that trajectory to the character. He's been doing it real subtle, but, you know, it's easy for me to just sit here and be like, well, obviously Drew's going to win because X or because Y or whatever. But I think that they've been telling the story, if you've been watching the show, that Lashley has been distracted. That even though he lost to Kofi, he didn't destroy Kofi afterwards. You know, he didn't, you know, even the next week demand to fight him again. He didn't try to tear him apart. He wasn't like, there was a time where, you know, it didn't take much to get Lashley to want to rip your head off and punt it across the street. Now he's kind of like letting things slide. You know, like, you know, you got this guy who pulled his fucking sword on him and cut the table in half. And Lashley's like, what the hell? What the hell's wrong with this guy? You know? And, but they kind of pulled back on him a little bit. And I don't think that it's bad booking, quote unquote. I think that it is them showing that Lashley has started getting complacent. And that's the worst thing that could possibly happen to a badass character like Lashley. You know, I was gonna. I'm not. I don't want to go too deep into it, but Lashley is what we call the badass. It's a different aspect of the warrior, right? He is some mixture of warrior and king, right? Where he's got this personality where he's willing to fight the alpha male mentality. He will fight to assert dominance. Once dominance is asserted, he expects everybody to fall in line, but he knows that one day somebody's going to come up and try to test him. And early in his run, that's what Lashley was. He was, he fought, scratched, achieved dominance, and fought to maintain dominance. But after a while, you do get a little bit lackadaisical with it. You become, I'm the man, nobody's going to stand up to me. I beat everybody already. Nobody's a challenge. Even though they didn't do a good job, like giving him a long run to do that. Like you would expect Lashley to be champion 8 months. And then they start, him being lackadaisical, which I think would have been so much better and so much more impactful if he had been champion for a long term. And, there was these threats from Randy or these threats from other people who were getting close to beating him, but he had, at the end continually won. And now he's kind of like, nobody can beat me. I don't need to put in the amount of effort that I put in before. I can chill now. Like if you go back to what Lashley was doing before WrestleMania, they was posting all these videos of Lashley in the gym, right? He was like Clubber Lang from Rocky, because that was the Clubber Lang thing, is that he was a badass, crush everybody in sight. But then once you don't got the eye of the tiger anymore. I think y'all see where I'm going with this. I'm jumping all over the place, but that's the badass. That's what we call the badass. I was going to do a video. I'm going to do a video about it eventually. But it is an animalistic alpha male mentality where you fight to assert dominance and you become territorial, where it's like, this is my space. Everything within this space, I control this space. And that's when a couple of weeks ago I kept talking about, is Lashley the star of the show or not? Because he had already asserted dominance over the show, but he was still kind of doing weird shit like hugging Braun Strowman and stuff like that. Like that's not what his character should be doing. His character should be a lot more like Roman, where it's a lot like, good job. You may pat him on the back, pat him on the shoulder, rub his head or something. Treat him like a young boy, because you're supposed to be like, this is my space. I don't need any help protecting my space. In fact, and anybody who tries to put themselves on my level is a threat, and then you crush the threat. That's kind of how that works. And you see this in pack animals all the time. Wolves, gorillas, chimpanzees, lions. You will have, alpha male and then all the beta males and all the alpha female, beta females and all that kind of stuff. And the fate of the badass is to die, That's the fate of the warrior in general. The fate of the warrior is to die in battle. The fate of the badass is to die, to be beaten eventually. That's why the Mike Tyson story. Mike Tyson is probably the number one when I tell people about the badass archetype. It's not just a warrior, it's a specific kind. Is that it was Mike Tyson's fate to lose eventually. And once that armor that was around him, him being Iron Mike, once that was broken, it was very difficult to get that back, to get that reputation back, and it was virtually impossible. For a few years, he was still able to be able to coast on being Iron Mike Tyson. And then, it kind of fluttered from there as, more people figured out how to beat him, because now there's more people seeing him, seeing how to beat him. And I'm afraid that they're going to do the same thing with Lashley, where he's going to relax and start chilling with these ladies. And they can't have him doing what Mike Tyson did. Like Mike Tyson was doing drugs, popping pills and drinking all the time, being real extra, You know, his eye was completely off the ball. He wasn't focused on being world champion. He just thought that everybody was scared of him because he's Mike Tyson, and fuck them, I'm Mike Tyson. I can do whatever I want. And then Buster Douglas had a little bit of the eye of the tiger. He fought a little bit harder than Mike expected him to, and he won. He beat him. You know, and it happens all the time, especially in boxing. But, you know, it's the fate of the badass to be beaten by the next badass. And but you want to get that to go as long as possible. And, you know, I don't think Lashley's run has been long enough for them to be coasting the way that they're doing. But I just see it. You know, I see what's happening. And as long as the match is good and it's the last match between these two, I'm fine. I don't want Lashley to lose the belt, but I'm 98% sure he's going to lose the title. And that fucking sucks. You know, because I'm really kind of like, hey, they're supposed to be doing a draft soon. Maybe get Drew the fuck off this brand. You know, move Lashley to SmackDown or something like that. Or, you know, something. You know, just do something. But, you know, it's unfortunate that we're kind of stuck with this position. But I really love the characterization of Lashley. And I can see where they're going with it. With, you know, him not being punctual with the contract signing. You know, like that sort of stuff is small, but it matters. You know, and I'm really interested in what they're going to do for, especially when it comes to the MVP Kofi Kingston thing. Also with Drew McIntyre, just a little symbolism for Drew McIntyre before I leave y'all. There's some extra layers to that story that he was telling about Robert the Bruce in the cave. You know, you could talk about, you know, not just, you know, failing and trying again, which is what he wanted to get across. But he also talked about, you know, freeing Scotland, and that Scotland was enslaved, I'm guessing, to the British at the time. So you can look at it from, you know, the Scottish living in a tyrannical regime, and they had been defeated, and, you know, they had to fall back and rethink their plan, come up with a new plan and re-engage. You can actually take that position and bring it right into this storyline right here, which is what Drew was talking about. And the fact that, you know, we're living under this tyranny of the Almighty. We're in his territory where he's doing whatever he wants, which is basically fucking off with girls and stuff now, which is fine with me, but, you know, not everybody else likes it. But now he feels like he had to fall back and regroup, and now he's going to re-engage, which is, you know, typical warrior stuff. You're either a defender or you're engaging, you know, ever forward. So it's an interesting storyline that they're doing with these two, man. And I see the symbolism and the characters and everything, and the archetypes is there. I'm just pissed that it looks like, you know, a good 98% chance that Lashley's going to lose the belt. And there's absolutely no reason for it. You know, he's so comfortable in the role now. There's no, you lose a lot by taking it from him now. You know, I think that the money is in letting Lashley hold it long term and then using him to put over somebody else. You know, but because that's really what you want. But I also at the same time understand that you just can't have Lashley get beat by some rando and that's it. You know, like he gets beat by like random, like a 5'6" Adam Cole or something like that. You can't do that. You know, the character, it wouldn't make sense for the character. It has to be another badass. And the only other badass on the roster right now is Drew McIntyre. You know, he's the closest thing to it, rather. Boy. Anyway, like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys for your time, and I'll talk to you guys later, man. Peace.